Greetings, welcome to Terra Prime Live. My name's Eerockk, and tonight I'm representing Terra Prime Live for another one of the tech shows here. Tonight's episode is called, well, it's not just building sabers with Eerockk. They just said that because I'm the host. We'll be building sabers tonight with Saberform's own Ben Pass. Always good to have you here, Ben. As a fellow Canadian. Oh yeah, by the way, we have pretty much a Canadian panel tonight. So. That's I don't know. I'm a Canadian too. If you didn't know that. So yeah, we'll also say that Canada isn't the only place where these lightsabers are built. Just so you know, this looks disproportionate. Anyway, so and also tonight we have David from Winnipeg.
Hello, hello.
River City Jedi.
That's right.
Yeah,
Representing the Great White North.
Yeah, well, you guys, I pretty much think you guys have us all beat. I'm in London, Ontario, which is literally between Buffalo, New York, and Detroit, Michigan. So, same pretty much latitude as that. Detroit's a little bit farther south. We have the Great Lakes shielding us from everything. So what we have is a shield to the south, protecting us from all of those major U.S. tornado storms and such like that. And we have Lake Huron to the north, which protects us from what David gets every winter. Massive amounts of, and yeah, that lake is what basically differentiates London from Winnipeg. We lucked out, man. And you're from Nova Scotia, is that correct, Ben?
Yes, I'm on the very southernmost tip of Nova Scotia. Actually, the actual southernmost tip of Nova Scotia, and we're right between two weather streams, so everything goes to one side of us or the other, and we have the best weather possible.
Nice. Excellent. And yeah, David, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Managed to get off work a little early so I could make the show. So I'm glad to join you, and let's have a chat. Exactly.
So yeah, tonight, everybody, Saberites. This is kind of one of the techie, geeky shows. So you're just saying, oh, let's learn some saber combat techniques. Unfortunately, this is not one of said shows. Those will normally be hosted by Master Anonymous, of course. So. He always gives me in charge of when it gets to these techie things. So what I'm going to do tonight is, while everything's going on, I'm going to reassemble my Overlord, but I'm going to do it out of a hilt. So I can just basically just see if all the wires, are fine, everything works, sort of thing. Yeah, just want to State of the Union kind of thing. And yeah, we'll get to David next, who is going to tell us what he does all about custom building sabers.
So I start my process when I'm building sabers around I start with the design process. That's what I do, is I kind of find something that I like or I think that's going to fit, and I think that's the biggest part when you're designing a saber, is you should really be focused on making sure that the saber you're building is actually going to be something you can use. Now, there's a big difference between something you're going to use and just spin around or have on a shelf, or something you're going to duel with. I have in front of me, this is one of the first sabers that I designed. Now, it's not going to show up too great on camera just because of the way that it is. I have done very little with it because I'm waiting on some. I am waiting on some pieces to be finished. Now, this is a complete DIY. I am actually waiting on an electronic circuit board that a friend of mine is building for me. And it's going to allow me to have no switches. It's going to be touch sensitive on off, and proximity for auxiliary and a bunch of other kind of cool little things. I'm not a fan of switches. As you can see, there isn't actually, if I spin it, there isn't actually a visible switch anymore. I actually, for the sake of being able to test it, because this is going to be my sparring saber, I put my switch in a pommel just because I want to be able to have that. So I have right now I have a X2 green-red LED in here, and inside the LED, or wired to the LED, I actually have a slide tack switch that allows me to switch between the green and the red at will. And this way I can kind of play around when I'm instructing people in class. From there, I am working on an actual wood mahogany shroud It's going to have some brass for my touch plates and those types of things. So the biggest thing to do is when you're designing your saber, whether it's on paper for a machinist or whether it's using the MHS builder on TCSS, is to make sure that your saber is going to be something you're going to actually be able to wield. You might have to go through 4 or 5 or 6 different reiterations of it, but that's a good thing to do. Never write something, don't just take it and then be like, that's it, I'm going to be good with it. Play around with your pictures, play around with your lineup, and see if that's going to be something that you have that's going to work for you. I would also suggest, if it's your first saber, your biggest thing that you should be looking at is how am I going to use it, and I wouldn't build a custom to be your first one. Buy something that you can learn to use it or learn how you're going to hold it and those types of things, because everybody's different and you want to be able to make sure that what you're using is going to actually suit you. Because I can guarantee you that the one that I use does not suit at least half of the members of my class. And from there, right now, recently I purchased a small wood and metal lathe for working on the interiors, and obviously for my wooden shroud, and I'm going to be using that to kind of shape everything and get it down to where I want it to be. So that should be pretty interesting. But that's kind of the way you want to work it. And from there, make sure that when you're building something, it's locked down. I think the best display that I have of something that's completely locked down into place, this isn't actually custom. This is, if anybody can see it, this is Genesis Custom Sabers Ascend. This is one of the ones he has with sound. I'll just boot it up and y'all can hear it turn on and all that jazz. I got a blade plug in it right now, but underneath this piece here is this piece right here is a shroud. Underneath here he's got a screw that holds his LED in place so that it doesn't actually move ever inside. Because it's only a regular 1-inch flat can, it can slide back and forth. But the biggest piece that I find when it comes to the version 2 of the Ascend is this. It's a one-piece slide-out Delrin chassis. And you can see that. Battery, soundboard, everything is all contained inside this piece. In here, nothing moves. You don't have to worry about cables fraying, cables pulling, battery coming loose even, because if you see the battery is mounted inside and even covered with a clear plastic tube so that it won't move. And then it's locked into place with the speaker holder. As you can see that the speaker is there, and then the pommel holds it down in place and locks it in place. This thing doesn't move now. The version 1 was a little bit loose on the inside and did have some problems. The battery pack on this saber specifically broke and needed to go back for repair, and when it did, he upgraded it to the version 2 internals. So that was pretty good. And that's something that you want to think about when you're building your own saber, is locking down your internals and making sure that you don't have that pull or extra cable to cause any kind of damage or those types of things, because I have seen soundboards completely die from the shock of cables pulling off.
Yeah.
And I'll throw it over to Ben.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, for those of you who have seen my stuff before, you know basically what I do is flash handle stuff. I love the feel and the look of an old camera flash handle, and to me it just screams authentic because of the Graflexes and the MPPs and such. And I've got one right here that I actually did last night in preparation for the show, and it's an old Clark flash. I'll try to get that back far enough to use it. But I mean, you see, it's tiny. It is absolutely tiny. And I was able to put this together in, I think I told Eerockk last night it was about 2 hours. And that was completely disassembling it, gutting it, and honestly, the majority of the 2 hours was getting this tiny switch put in place. Yeah, but this is one I got from one from Sand People on Imperial Royal Arms. Uh, a while back I got a huge box of pieces from him, and in it were 2 Clark flashes, and kept the clamp on it because again I like the feel of it, and in this situation it's a great thing to put your thumb on. Let me try to turn this so that the camera will pick it up. You got to brace your thumb in. Right there's your switch. Now this is a stunt build, one that I just used from stuff that I had around the house because that's what I do. I coined, well, not originally coined the term, but back when I made my Corran Horn inspired hilt, I dubbed it the Junk Saber. And that's what I like to do with these kind of things, is just take stuff that I have laying around the house and turn them into something that's usable. Now this particular one, because it was a rush job and because I didn't have a whole lot of stuff on hand, for example, I'm out of LEDs right now, tore apart an old flashlight and used an empty module that I had and rigged it up for that. The switch came from a VCR that died. I tested it out with an old VHS before I watched the original trilogy. Thankfully, I did that before it ate my tapes, and got that switch from inside the VCR. It is only a momentary switch, so you got the dead man switch on it, but that's about it. To hold the switch in place, not only do I have it fastened, but I have a piece of those old Hasbro extendable sabers. Cut down the blade, and you have that for insulation inside, as well as to keep everything a little bit tighter. Then add on a single 14500 lithium-ion cell, and there you go. And of course, like David was saying, everything is tight. You're not moving. In fact, and I honestly don't think this will show up on camera. No, it won't. Too dark here in the house. But I have an additional steel pipe inside, just as a little bit of extra thickness to keep everything from moving around, keep everything secured. And I've got the retention screw right into the module so that doesn't move. This one is more of a display piece at this point, since I haven't had the stuff on hand to make it the way that I want it to be, so there's almost no blade depth, but depth to the blade holder rather. But it's just something fun that I was able to take from stuff that I had on hand and make into a saber. And of course you can do all sorts of different things with that. I mean, probably everyone who will watch this has seen my first saber that I built, and that was a Mendelssohn Flash, my first attempt at ever making a lightsaber, and obviously it needs to be improved along the way, but as long as you can get your hands on something, you can turn it into a lightsaber. This was $5 or $10 to get this off of eBay, and that was my original lightsaber hilt. And of course, LED module, easy enough to use. Keep the vent holes and put a little bit of that Hasbro removable blade into it, and you get a crystal chamber effect. And really, that's what I like doing, is finding stuff around the house, finding stuff that is supposed to be junk and headed to the garbage can, and using it for something. It's recycling, and it gives the in-universe feel to me personally. And like I said, there's no end to stuff that you can find. When I tore apart the VCR, instead of just getting the switch, I got this to start on my arc reactor build. And I don't know how well that's showing up, but just stuff you can pull out of nothing and put together.
It's amazing. Yeah, dude, that's, yeah, there we go. Yeah, working the camera there. it seems so easy. It, I don't know. I'm just kind of stunned at that. You just pulled that thing together in 2 hours. That's a perfect Padawan saber. You know, it's really cool. Yeah, thank you both. That's kind of interesting. Well, yeah, man. Sorry, Ben. Can I just go back to have you made any sonic screwdrivers lately? Because you do that with Doctor Who, and I know a lot of our members and viewers are Doctor Who fans. It seems.
I haven't made one lately. I do have a gentleman over on Saber Forum that wants to commission one from me, and I am having a devil of a time finding the color stone that he wants, and just seems that nowhere around here is carrying it, and I'm going to have to get that stone from eBay. But I do have my personal one in the messy closet behind me.
Oh.
Yeah, and for those, like for anyone who's seen my thread on those, I just use some copper pipe in that and some solderless solder to keep it all together. A bit of thin polycarb inside to hold everything together, and a mini flashlight. It's not really a complicated thing once you've got your idea figured out, and then you weather it however you want. That particular one's been through several iterations. Looked like it had been blown up at one point with all the black paint on it, but now I've got it most of the black paint's gone, other than at the joins, and just wear and tear and sweat of your hand and such, and it's just aged the copper nicely, and that's mine.
Yeah, that's cool. The reason why I mention that is because what we're talking about here doesn't necessarily only apply to lightsabers. If you want something that lights up, a lot of this stuff is going to be the same thing, but you just have to find the right shell to do it. Our shells kind of look like tubes, but yeah, I knew Ben that you made a sonic screwdriver. I've never really been a terribly large Doctor Who fan. It's interesting, but I kind of watch it only when someone else is watching it, which is hardly ever. But I was just remarking about the fact that you posted pictures about it, and wow, you can make lightsabers out of other whole stories, but they're not lightsabers. They're lightsabers, if you will. I'm very biased.
Oh, exactly, and you just move it to a larger scale for something like a lightsaber. Well, I mean that's what I did with the Mando saber that I put together about a month or so back. Just bigger copper tubing, cutting down different joins, screwing it together, and putting a switch in place.
Cool, cool. And David. So how about you, man? Have you done any kind of like kitchen sink jobs or
I actually did post on one of the threads that we have going on the Exiles forum that we have going. Somebody was asking about making a curved lightsaber hilt, and my biggest thing that I found lately is that a lot of the curved lightsabers that are out on the market are really expensive. You're looking at $275 for an empty on the last Dooku run that got done, and $565 for a base model of the Genesis Custom Sabers Bad Axe. And while they're good builds, and it's really interesting, and it's really nice to have a piece like that. Often making one of your own is something that's going to really set you apart. And I've been looking at picking up a curved aluminum pipe that's kind of poking its head out at me every time I walk in through Rona. And I want to go and grab one of those. And now that I have the lathe making some nice wooden grips for it, and doing some leather work and making it like a steampunkish kind of curved saber, and giving it a really interesting look. You guys were talking about having things kicking around and making something interesting from it, or using it to use light up and those types of things. One of the things that I've noticed on a lot of forums is people that have people that want their saber stands to light up, and that is it's something that people really enjoy, especially getting the old Hasbro FX stand that's got the two clear arms, and having those light up, and whether it's the color of your saber or whatever it is. Last year, I was commissioned to build a steampunk saber for a vendor. So the vendor's name is Tall Gear Industrial, and if I could figure out how to share a photo on here, I would. But what I do have here is I've got a couple of old vacuum tubes, and I'm just waiting on a wooden. Stand that I've commissioned a friend of mine to make. It's got some nice cuts and routering that I don't have access to the tools, and he's a furniture maker, so he's got all the stuff that he would need for it. And I'm actually going to use the same LEDs that we currently have, some ambers and some yellows, and I'm going to make it so that with a simple flick of a switch or even the touch of a plate, have it so that it will light up these vacuum tubes with either yellow or red. And this way his saber, when it's on display, because that's what he wanted, so you can walk over, use a AAA battery, hit a switch, and it'll turn on some LEDs and make it really interesting for the viewing of his saber. I'm just waiting on that stand to come back, and then I can start doing the work on it. But those are the things that I like to do, is finding kind of an interesting way of using pieces. Let's see if I can capture or share this photo.
There we go.
There we go. Everybody can see that. That's is that showing up for you guys?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that is a custom piece that we did. Darth Alice of the Imperial Arms forum did the machining for me, but that's a custom stunt rapier build that we did for one of our members. It was really interesting, super tight to work in. The pommel right here, or sorry, the actual hilt where you would hold it. This actually contains an 18650 battery inside it, and it is so tight in there that you can actually barely get it through. I actually damaged the wires when I was originally building it, and didn't notice until about 3 months later when we pulled the plate off and we could smell the burning. So I'm waiting on a new battery, and we're going to go from there. But this is another custom piece that we did. I don't know if anybody from the Imperial Arms forums or who regulars there knows. So we did a build for a small boy that is injured, and they did a fundraiser for him. This is one of the sabers that we built, and this was all built from donated parts. I didn't pay a dime for anything in here. But what we did was the Imperial Arms forum, the community was great. We reached out to them, and we got a huge box. We had enough for 2 sabers. I didn't get any photos of the second one because my partner did the build on the second one, and we had to deliver it, and I didn't get a chance to take any pictures. But this was the one that we did with sound. And this was actually the first install that I ever did with sound, so it was a little tricky for me. But getting the paint right, and this control box is actually JB welded onto the saber, and there's enough JB weld on that thing that I could probably lift a truck with that lip, and it probably wouldn't move. So it's good. The beauty part was about a 10-year-old kid won both sabers, so it was great to see that. And I mean for that it's a really for the donation, it was really great. And then this was the one. There we go. This is the saber that I built, that I'm going to build that stand for. So it's got hammered copper paint. The shroud work was really what I really enjoyed doing. It took me a little bit of time, but I managed to get the shroud built up. And there's 3 layers there's aluminum, there's brass, and there's copper on that, and it's all shaped and molded. And these screws that are located here are actually holding the shroud in, as well as being extra support for that copper to hold down. Copper is also JB welded down, so it's not going to come out. But that's kind of the DIY that I do, is playing around with metal. And I like, my roommates probably hated me because I probably spent, that was the 3rd shroud. was the third attempt at that shroud that I did to get it to the right curve, and I actually cracked the first two because I pounded it too thin. So I got my roommates were probably pretty mad at me because I was sitting there hammering metal for probably a couple of hours in my room. They weren't too happy, but once they saw the end result, they were pretty stoked. So that's what I like to do, is just play around with heavy things. So.
Excellent. Awesome, man. So yep, I'm ready to assemble the Overlord here. Just for the sake of time, I might not be able to put the LED on, but I'll at least show where the wires go. Really, what I want to do is just test this soundboard out with this really big speaker here, which plugs into the wall and or USB. And yeah, it's way more than the 3 watt the 3 watters that we normally have. So curious to see what happens. But yeah, so what? So we already talked a little bit about what we were gonna, what somebody would do to start out. I'll probably post a link to the show here about the what the parts of the lightsaber are. But what would you recommend for somebody to? I can't talk tonight, guys. What would you recommend to somebody who would want to just kind of start to build a lightsaber that they could actually maybe duel with? Anybody?
You want to start with that, Ben, or you want me to give that a go first?
Well, for something that you really want to duel with, best advice I can possibly give is to echo what Dave said, is to make sure everything is locked down and very secure. I mean, if something is not secure, doesn't matter how great your hilt is, doesn't matter how great everything else is, if your internals aren't secure, you hit something, they blow apart, you may very well have a costly repair ahead of you. I mean, especially if you have components that get damaged in that. So make sure everything is secure. Save yourself and anyone else that you have do the work a big headache, and make sure everything's secure. And the only other thing I can say is to know what it is that you're working with as a hilt. For example, like I said earlier, do the flash handle sabers. They're great. They're fun for just working on and display, but these are not meant to stand up to dueling. I mean, when they were created as something to hold a camera flash, they were not meant to be bashed against other things at full force dueling. So you need to know the limits of what it is you're working with. I mean, if you have something that is weak or not meant for this purpose, you got to make sure that it's going to be secure.
Thanks, man. And yeah, David, how about you, man? What would you say to somebody who would? Okay, maybe just switch up the question, because I know it from your background for what River City Jedi does. And what would you say to somebody who would want to start with a dueling saber? Like, they want to build something besides. Maybe, do you have anything else?
Yeah, if you're looking at building your own and you want it to be duel worthy, building. I have not personally tested the merits of having of using the stuff you can buy at a store and swinging it around and seeing how full force contact works. I'm pretty sure that the aluminum or zinc tube stuff that you get, probably not so great. The PVC will probably hold up if you're using the PVC stuff. Shouldn't be too bad. What I would suggest is, if you're building your own, unless you are a machinist, to start with TCSS stuff. It's really simple. You can see what it's going to look like in essence before you get it. You can make sure that you're ordering everything. You can use their forums as a knowledge base to ask questions and make sure that you have everything covered. And then make sure that when you order it, you have all the other things you need that they don't sell there, like a soldering iron and solder and all those things that you're going to need to be able to put it all together. And that you're at least somewhat versed in using them. It's one of those things you can learn how to do it, but if you're learning how to do it on your first saber, you're I wouldn't say you're going to have a bad time, but it's going to be challenging. You're probably going to have to redo some joints, and you're probably going to have to put things back together a few times. I know that I hadn't soldered in probably nigh on a decade before I started getting into doing it when I was sabering, and it took me a little while to get the hang of making clean joints again, and that's something that's really important, is making sure that you don't have an excess amount of solder in your saber, and that you're covering things properly. Heat shrink instead of hot glue. These don't use electrical tape. These are things you want to worry about. And then play around with your design. Order something small to start with, and if you're starting out and it's the first thing you've ever built and you're not really super versed in it, build a stunt. Start with a stunt saber. Get used to wiring, because you could quite easily cross your wire or do something you're not expecting and blow your soundboard. And that's $100. If you order from TCSS with shipping, it's $100. If you order yourself a Spark, or you order yourself a Spark, it's going to be $120 with shipping. So you end up with that excess, and you really kind of want to try to avoid it. If you really want to do it sound on your first build, my best suggestion to you is to go to Walmart and pick up a Force Effect Saber and rip out the guts and use that soundboard. The cheapest option that you can have. And the sound is more than enough for a basic saber, and then in the end, you can rip it apart and put in new guts afterwards. Thank you to Michael Redcrow. We just popped up a question here for us, or a statement. Yeah, we definitely have the Custom Saber Shop's great for one-stop, get everything as you go. Another question here popped up. One of the viewers saying that he made a mod for a shock that allows an extra set of 4 AAA batteries. Now that if you're running it through a buck, not too bad. You're not overvolting. You're just going to give you some extra battery life.
No.
You're probably. What was that? Go ahead.
I know what he's talking about there. I recognize the question asker. He's actually running them in parallel, not in series. So he's basically getting 2 times 7.4 volt packs.
4 AAAs.
And then another 4 AAAs below, but
yeah,
parallel.
So you're seriously overdriving your LED to be safe. You'd be careful with that, but it's interesting. I've never actually tried that, running 14 volts to an LED.
No, David, that's not series, but parallel.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I was saying originally. He's running it for extra battery life, yeah. Yeah, it'll allow better battery life, definitely. The sabers that I run, is if you can take a look at it, they're mostly I've got 4 inches, and that's definitely not going to be able to fit that in there. But so I think that's it for me so far. Does any other questions?
Thanks. Ben, do you have anything to
add? At this point, I don't think I have anything to add other than what David said. Is, great to be able to add extra battery life, but you got to make sure that you're not overdriving stuff past what it's designed for. Otherwise, you are going to blow something. And when you're up here in Canada, you don't want to blow something if you don't have a spare, because shipping from anywhere, they're going to kill you.
Yes, sir. And that was actually good segue there. If people are looking to get Saber parts or Saber anything, let's just talk about the places where one can get one. Now, before I go, I'll definitely disclaim that TPLA endorses everybody, or we don't endorse anybody in particular. We are very neutral to everybody. If you make Saber parts or Sabers, we like you. I mentioned that on the last tech show. So if whatever you're hearing tonight on this show, these are endorsements of merit for experiences received, and just for the fact that these are facts. These places exist. I would have to say your mileage may vary with anybody. So we were just trying to make you aware that it's a little bit easier than you think, perhaps. Because I know it's not only online that you have to go for these things. But who would you like? Who would like to take that one away?
Well,
I know this is a terrible question to ask a Canadian because, yeah, we always avoid shipping because you're right. It's the border.
Yeah. As for me, for getting components, especially electrical stuff, you know, some stuff you can only get through TCSS, and that's great. Although you can't get their lithium-ion stuff transferred over unless you've got a box in the States and you can travel over. So when it comes to those, really, it's luck of the draw to find a reputable website either within Canada, especially for me. I'm down in the armpit of humanity. It's nearly impossible to find anything. The only electronics store is The Source, which was Circuit City, and even this one here, they have nothing. They've even stopped carrying switches. So it makes it very, very difficult. So when you're ordering, order extras, order in bulk if possible, order on sale if possible. But someone that I like buying stuff from, especially switches and LEDs and modules and such, is Daniel Lane, Lucian Kane from Imperial Royal Arms. He's got great stuff. He ships really quickly, I swear. It's like he stole the Falcon or something, because the stuff gets here long before any company that I've ordered from. You order from him, and it's really fast to get to you, even here in Canada. And I've never had a problem with them. And like I said, I've picked up switches and LEDs and modules, and even picked up a couple replica Graflex bunny ears and red thumb screws. And I like going through him. If he's got the stuff that I can get, that's who I go through.
Excellent.
So if we're looking for internals and you're looking at getting LEDs, switches, all those things that are, you know, you want to make something different. If you're in Canada, I mean, they're a tiny bit more expensive, but they are in Canada, so they pay shipping too. Is Active Electronics. Take a look at them. They have a good website. Their website's a little bit difficult to use, but it's decent, and they have decent prices, and you can get all your resistors and all those things is there as well. If you're looking for an interesting selection of extra stuff, weird LEDs, I'm looking at playing around with an ultraviolet LED. To see what happens with that. Might be an interesting purple once it gets on. Is Mauser Electronics. The beauty part about Mauser is they have flat rate shipping pretty much across the world, and you don't pay duty on it. It gets billed back to them. So making sure that you're looking at the right stuff. Take your time. That's where I get my 18650 packs from. My slide switches, I get them from there because it's cheaper than buying it, less expensive than buying from TCSS, and I don't pay extra on my shipping. So I pay the same amount to ship it, and I don't pay duty when it gets in, and I can get them in bulk. Those things of it's those types of things is playing around and finding other sources. If you're buying in bulk, playing around and finding things, you can get, if you're buying 50 pieces of something, so you need to buy switches, and you're buying 50 pieces of it, it's weird to look at it, but go to Alibaba. They have lots of different vendors on there, and once you create an account, which doesn't cost anything, and it's just regular sign-in, and you can find what you're looking for, you can order 50 switches, and it's going to cost you $70 maybe at the most, but you're going to have switches for the rest of your life. Or you can blow LEDs and not have to worry. Those types of things are looking at, if you're building and you're looking at building a lot or repairing or helping friends out locally. I know there's a lot of people out there that do that. I'm going to fix the LED that my friend has. Well, I'm going to order an LED for them. If you just need an LED, you don't need a can. Picking up other things. That's my go-to outside of, again, Dan Lane is good for pieces and parts, TCSS, and then again from there is to go to look at actual electronics vendors. Mauser is a great example.
Excellent. Thanks so much. All right. So guys, let's see. Let's get on to a little bit more subjective material here. Tell me about the coolest thing you've ever seen, either homegrown or home milled, if you will.
I'm gonna have to think about that one for a minute.
I don't even have to think. Darth Alice's Proto Saber.
Oh yeah, I agree too.
If anybody hasn't seen it, I would very much suggest you go over to the Imperial Arms forums and take a look at it. If anybody knows that, hopefully people who are watching know the history of the lightsaber. And the first lightsabers ever used by people in combat had a huge battery pack that was strapped to their back or their waist, and then they had a cord that was going to a hilt, and then the hilt would power up because they couldn't get power sources that were small enough to fit inside the hilt of a saber. Darth Alice took that literal translation and actually made a connected battery pack and saber. He used originally I believe it was Ultra Saber's Prophecy V2, and did a whole bunch of work. And it was definitely one of the best sabers of that year, and it was really, really great. And it was before he was a an actual smith. He was just doing that for himself. It was a project he took on to do for himself, and he wasn't doing it on commission or anything. And it's definitely to this day one of the best sabers I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was my answer actually too. Not only that, did you talk about the plasma ring on the battery pack?
I did not know. That was definitely
Yeah, that's what killed me about it. Just as one of those little plasma discs, just like the ones that sit above the Borg regeneration chambers, and it's really, really cool too. It's got one of those old phones with the dry cells, and you crank the wheels. It looked like, or maybe even just a regular base phone. But anyways, an old telephone from circa 1960, I believe, with the cloth cable. I think that's what I saw, and 12-volt battery pack, I think he said he put in there, or 13.5, and some kind of funky subwoofer, so he said it was really, really loud. I second that. It blew my mind. His katana and light foils are also kind of neat, too. Another thing, too, might not be so do-it-yourself, but what do you guys think of the light whips out there? Have you ever seen any? I know I just saw one come out with from Saberforge, but there have been others before. What are your takes on those?
Personally, I'm not much of a whip guy anyway. The whole appeal to me of lightsabers, beyond the connection to Star Wars, is they're space swords. I like the idea of swords. Those were the two things that I was raised on, is Star Wars and sci-fi, and knights in shining armor. I like the idea of dueling with swords. So to me, the whip is, I understand within the EU it does have a place, and it's great for those who want to use something like that, but to me personally, that's just not a fit of what a lightsaber is.
Cool.
Them's fighting words. I'm actually on the same kind of vein as Ben is. I think that they're cool and they have a place within the I guess the alternative universe galaxy now. But it's definitely not something that I would personally use, but they look cool, and there's definitely characters that have used them, so it's definitely there. So Scraver X, you did ask. Yeah, that it's Mauser Electronics is where I go to for my battery packs. I order a couple of LEDs from there every now and then, and there's switches that I get from there as well.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I think we're about ready here, just at least to test the sound. I'll just mute myself and you guys.
While we're waiting on him to just finish up here, Ben, did you figure out what saber you would shut out as the homebrew saber you would like the most?
For homebrewed, I think I have to agree with Darth Alice's prototype saber. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. You know, there are all kinds of smiths with wonderful designs. You know, off the top of my head, the first two that I think of is Industrial Action and Darth Xanthus. You know, I've got a saber that they collaborated on, and you know, it's one of my favorites. I've got another brass one by Darth Xanthus, again in the closet mess. But you know, I love their designs, but I think for home brewed, you know, just taking something and turning it into something completely different, I have to agree, it's the Proto Saber.
Excellent. There's also that what is it? The Starkiller. Was it one or is it many of them? One of them just got released and it looks awesome.
There's two. There's the run of Starkillers from TFU2 that just came out, done by Solus Hold and Darth Alice. Solus Hold, yeah, sorry, just Solus Hold just did that one. And it's a great piece. It's actually done really well. And then there's the Industrial Action and Darth Alice TFU1 that was just released. It was just some shots that IA put up on his page, on his Facebook page, and his section on Imperial Arms, and that thing is mind-blowingly gorgeous. I guess is the best way to describe it. It is the launch. I guess the first saber that was launched with the new Z6 LED that Nigon released, and it is definitely a crazy looking saber. That's amazing.
I don't know, things just keep coming out.
Yeah. Never any end to it.
Ultra Sabers has a Thundercat Saber.
They do. I'm not a huge fan of the look of it, but I know that it's actually quite funny. Is right before that was released, I was approached by a friend here. He asked me. He wanted me to make a longsword style saber with the crossguard and all that too. So I'm currently trying to find a way to do that without causing any damage or having to build it with a shroud, because I don't want it to be shrouded. I want it to be mounted somehow so that the crossguard doesn't get broken. Because he wants to use that either as a Sith or Jedi cosplay that he's working on, but also a character from the comics. They used an energy-based longsword, and I can't remember the name of the character as I'm not really quite very versed in it, but it was definitely interesting from there.
Cool. Okay, so I have a question here. It's by Michael Redcrow, and he wants to point out the flash on clash elements here. So what I haven't done, Michael, so it's not, yeah, I guess we can just simplify it, but the buck here is actually missing. So the wiring will be different, but just to briefly describe it, since we have an Obsidian board just sitting here with one battery in it ready to go, the flash on clash, you'll notice that there are, maybe, if I can hold it properly, 1, 2, 3 wires that are loose right now. Those 3 wires connect to the buck and then back, and then and that would be how I'd hook up the LED right now if I were to put it on. But that 3rd wire here, the one closest to the speakers, which has just come loose, I'll just fix as I'm talking here. That would be the flash on clash lead, and what happens is there's a little bit on the Obsidian board right here, somewhere underneath the epoxy there. And what happens when it detects a clash, it then just triggers the negative lead to switch over to it briefly. So what it does is it just breaks the circuit on your main LED and then flips it over to the flash on clash for a second, and then internally just flips it back to the main LED. So it really has two circuits when you have FOC, or flash on clash, and all the board does is really just when it detects clash, it just changes from circuit 1 to circuit 2 and back again for you. And that's why you have to have two separate circuits to your LED. So, good thing I'm not mucking around with that right now because I'm having just a little bit of trick. There we go. I just have to just join the speaker wire here. What I've done for the speaker wire, since you know, if I had a speaker wire properly, or a speaker, I would have reassembled my Overlord by now. But I'm working on that. Instead, what I've done is I've taken a mono 1/8" jack cable, like a headphones, but it would only work with mono. And that cable's pretty old. It only has 2 wires inside, so it really simplified my night. What I've done is I've just screwed or put in one end to one and the other to the other. Everything's good here. So, and on the other side, I've just put on the switch because it has to have a solid connection. The circuit has to always be on, or else putting it on would actually start up the Saber, and that's what a kill key does, really. It just goes in the recharge port and does that for you. But yeah, this is just the basic circuit, and I have nothing but the Obsidian plugged in. So if I put this in, nothing happens. Oh yeah, should not have done the...
Good. Your soundboard might not be putting out enough juice to power that speaker.
Oh no, oh yeah, that could be. These are fresh batteries too, so oh, maybe they're not touching here. Let's see.
There you go. Kind of work.
Let's see. Well, no, not working. Something's loose.
Yeah.
That's why something's loose. We'll figure it out.
So yeah, those speakers are only, or that soundboard's only set default to output 1.5 watts. So your speaker probably needs more than that to run.
That probably makes sense because it is going through an 1/8" jack cable here, and it's thick copper wire to this tiny little wire. Well, you know, it was worth a shot.
It was. It's definitely, it would be interesting to see if you could get it to pump out enough juice to do that. What I would suggest, I think I missed it when we were doing to do that. When you're building a Saber, do all your wiring and set everything up before you put it in your Saber. As we're experiencing Eerockk fumbling with switches, fumbling with cables, trying to get connections to work, alligator clips on leads. If you're around a Princess Auto anywhere, you can walk into Princess Auto and buy a bag of alligator clips with either pre-wired, or you can just get clips, and you can just solder them onto the clip itself. Just any gauge wire will work. Generally, I just use some nice 20 gauge, whatever, something simple. And then all you just need to do is, for that exact situation, you just clip a lead to either side and be done with it. I do that all the time when I'm doing color testing or mixing. I want to play around with voltages, and I kind of like the color that something is putting in, but not quite. I will play around with resistors. I don't have it anymore. The board I had it mounted to broke. But I just had a range of resistors, and yeah, I could do the math, but I like the color. I like to see what the color actually looks like. So I have a board that's, cut 2-3 inches long, and then I just have all the range of resistors that I would use to do color mixing, all just pretty much stapled down to the board, and then I just use my alligator clips and I just touch to the leads, and I find the color that I really like, and then I just grab that from the box, and I wire it into my switch, so that I know exactly what color I'm getting. And I don't like standard colors. The pink that Saber, that light foil that I have outputs is actually, it's really, really bright pink and then kind of diffuses to blue as the light starts to fade. So it's got a really unique color. It's not a full straight up pink. And that's just because I over-resisted it just a little bit. So it allows me to have that extra kind of feel, gives it its own personality.
Very cool. Well, thanks, man. Sorry about that, guys. That's true. You do have to buy appropriate parts, and what I've done here is I didn't break anything, but it didn't work either. So I've just kind of shown what would you say most often happens, or perhaps you got everything planned a little bit better than I did and didn't do any kind of real homebrew experimentation like this. I thought this thing is self-powered. It does have power on the speakers, but I guess just for a regular audio jack input, you would need something else with the soundboard. So it's really designed to just handle those speakers that are available for it. Do you guys is that true? Do you think?
Yeah, I haven't actually seen it hooked up to anything other than one of those boards. So I'm not sure if they're actually other than one of those small, like a smaller 1.5 watt, 2 watt speaker, something in those range. I've never seen it hooked up to a 3 watt. I know someone has done it though. I've seen people do some pretty ridiculously loud speakers. The same way as we've seen people do some ridiculously bright sabers with 20 watt and 40 watt LEDs hooked up. You couldn't actually leave it on for very long or hold it because it heated up their saber so much. It was definitely an experience. Yeah.
That's amazing. I guess we're kind of running out of time here. This is the last question here. What would you say to somebody? What warnings would you have? There we go. That's one. What warnings would you give to somebody just starting out, or anything just to sneakily look out for?
Okay. Well, for me, it would be a couple things. Patience. You really have to be patient with what you're doing. If you rush your job, it will be crap. If you rush building a saber, you're going to make mistakes, and those mistakes will likely cost you your components, which means that you're owed a lot of money eventually. So be very patient. Make sure that you've got your parts listed out very carefully. Go through that list twice so that you don't end up with a triangular speaker that doesn't run your overlord. And that's just the thing is, be patient, know what your parts are, and like David said earlier, is make sure that you know what you're doing. Because if you're just trying to solder for your first time or your first time in a long time, chances are you're going to make mistakes. So get your practice in beforehand.
Definitely. Draw it out on paper first, and then even before you know what you're doing, just copy down the diagram onto paper, just so you've actually wired it with a pen. Maybe. That's what I would recommend. Any last thoughts for the evening, guys? Any advice to the crowd watching?
One thing that I forgot to mention before, and I know a lot of forums will tell you this, and when you're doing your research, this is one of your best friends especially when you're hooking up 10 watt LEDs. This is a tube of thermal grease. You can also get tape, just a straight piece of star tape that you can get at the custom saber shop. It's going to allow your heat to dissipate to your heatsink properly. I've definitely seen a lot of sabers that aren't, a lot of LEDs in my time that aren't mounted to anything. There's no grease, there's no tape, it's just loose. Your heat dissipation is going to be very poor, and you might end up frying your LED. So part of that, again, is research. When you're talking about doing this and actually building your saber for the first time, make sure that you're good, make sure that you do your research, and then make sure that you test everything before you start jamming it in place.
Excellent. And just last few words there, Ben?
Don't underestimate yourself. As long as you do your research, as long as you have things planned out, as long as you have what you need done and you have your practice in, you can do it. But that is the key, is to be patient and to take your time. Once you do that, you can start and get started and start with a small project and work your way up.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, well, yes, gentlemen, I thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We have Donaldin again, David from Winnipeg, and Ben from Nova Scotia, the south thereof, and otherwise known as Ben Pass on Saber Forum. That's where I met you, buddy. Anyway, Thank you again, everybody, for watching tonight. Again, this is Eerockk from TPLA Live, and we'll see you next Friday right here on the YouTube channel, either the live stream or maybe you're watching this again as a rerun, which is absolutely cool, because the reason why I kind of laughed when I said the crowd watching, our crowd is usually spaced out over maybe a week or two for each episode. So, again, thank you very much for joining us, and we shall see you next time. Happy sabering, and may the Force be with you. There we go. I didn't hang this up. Okay. Happy sabering.